everyone, welcome back to Rebecca's Random Adventures. Today I'm painting paper plates in the style of vintage floral plates. These were so fun to make, and I'm going to make another 4 of these to put up on my wall. I'm going to show you how I did them. You don't have to be great at watercolor to do this. I'm not great at watercolor. I make plenty of mistakes all the time, but you know what? When you put it up on the wall, it's so satisfying seeing the final result, and the process of it is really fun as well. So you're going to need paper plates. These are a little bit off-white. They are kind of like papery, I guess, maybe coated with something. I tested them and they're really good for watercolor pretty much, though they warp just very little bit. So besides a paper plate, I also have brushes. So I like to use watercolor brush pens. I have 2 small ones, and I also have 2 watercolor synthetic brushes. These are just very basic, simple nylon 818 round brushes. So these are the ones that I have, 2 new and 2 old. I'm just going to use a simple pencil and eraser to trace any designs if I need to. I have a little rag that I use to wipe up any spills. I have my paints. These are Korean watercolors. These are a lovely set. I love the vibrant colors in here. Quite happy with them. But I'm not like a pro watercolor artist or anything. I just do it for fun. But so far these are great. So they're made in Korea. I'm using acrylic gold paint because, as you will see, some of the plates have a gold edge, and I kind of like having that gold edge because it gives it that vintage feel. So I don't do it with watercolor, I do the gold edge with a bit of acrylic. And besides that, I just have a dirty, like, old water container. It's actually good to have 2. So finally, I have this old kind of cutting mat. I like the frosty color. I feel like it's good. It's a good clear background for mixing my different colors. As you can see, it's a big colorful mess, but this is what I use to mix colors when I paint. So this first design is super simple. You can practice it on paper first. I just have 2 roses surrounded by large leaves and little leaves, and then like a lavender-ish blue flower. And I'm going to do 1 on each side. So I'm going to freeform this, as no need to there's no need to sketch anything. Just got to make sure that this side matches with this side. As you can see, it doesn't quite match, but like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's obviously not placed very centrally. I'm going to start off with a little bit of a reddish hue that I want a little bit of purple mixed into as well. A pinkish purple. We're going to make the rose slightly on the bottom of the plate, but also slightly on this ridge up here. So I think I'm going to start here. Ooh, here we go. I'm just going to do like the center of a rose first. That's what I always do. Like, I want a little bit more pigment on here. Center of a rose is like a little C, and then another C that overlaps with that C, and then another kind of like wobbly petal shape on top of that. Now I'm going to blend in a little bit more pink with the purple, just to have a double tone, I guess. So just make these overlapping, maybe a bit more purple, pink, and then as I get to the outside, I'm making my brush kind of go flatter slightly, like that. Now what I like to do is they kind of make it a little bit more abstract, but I think we're going to do the next rose first, then we'll get back to kind of blending it out watercolor style. I don't like to do things too clean. I actually like a kind of like messiness to my watercolor technique, if you can call it a technique. So now we can get, now we see like some abstract messiness going on here. Even if one overlaps the other, that's all grand. Okay, it's really nice. And The nice thing about paper plates is we can rotate them as we paint, isn't it? Okay, and then let's do one that's a little bit off center from the other two and a little bit smaller. And a bit more pink. My petals are actually kind of short today. Usually they're actually pretty long. You know what? Then what I do is I dip my brush in the water, I think, and I'm just gonna smudge it out. Okay, yeah, pink here, and just like do a little spiral. So play around with it slightly. Okay, there we go. So that's a rose. It's not unlike the one that I did earlier. If I want a little bit more definition and detail, I could go in and add some more. But I like to blend my watercolors in and out slightly, so that they're not like very perfect and clean strokes. I feel like the abstractness is part of the charm. And then along the outside, I actually like to take just a little water and just blend them along the outside like that. These are getting a little bit big, I think. They'll do for now. Okay. The next bit will be to add maybe some leaves. So I learned a trick, which is that if you don't want things to be like pure green, you add a little bit of pink. I don't even plan my colors before I paint. Just getting a little bit of like red on my brush and just adding it to the green and then smudging it out. Or maybe that's a bit too much red. With a bit more, maybe dark green. Can add a bit more red to the side here and then pull some of the green over until we get like a mossy mixed tone. And then from there, I'm just going to water it down. Okay, let's do some leaves. And this is something that I learned from Sheila Campbell videos. I just press down and pull up like that. These are fun leaves to do. Sometimes I do ferns. I really like doing ferns as well. Sometimes I just like doing these. So far so good. You can see it doesn't match, you know, the green and all. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter at all. Okay, and up we go. Let's extend it out slightly. Okay, now let's get to the blue. Ooh, there's a little bug here. I have some dark blue already mixed up, so I'm just going to use that. Apparently what we want to do is we want to start by making little dots. Just dots like that. And I'm trying not to make them too straight. I want them to be like leaning a little bit left and right maybe. Just little dots. Not too many. It's random. Okay. Maybe one more here. And one more here. As you can see, they start to get lighter and a little bit more abstract. I'm actually going to mix in, I think, some lighter blue into my blue. Dab in a little bit of that. So one is cobalt blue, and then one is Prussian blue. And I think what I'm using more is some leftover Prussian blue. So I'm going to get my cobalt blue and water it down, mix it out. And just add to that. Okay, now it's too watery, but it's okay. Yeah, let's add a little bit more in there. Okay, well, there's a little bit more on this side than this side, so we could correct that slightly. Maybe add one here, maybe. That's not very defined. There are lots of mistakes and stuff, but when it all comes together, it just makes a beautiful whole. And sometimes I get frustrated halfway through coloring, and I go like, ugh, it's ruined, it's never gonna work. But then when I finish it, and it actually works, I'm like surprised, because the mistakes don't matter. And I think that's the thing about watercolor, is you really have to embrace mistakes for some reason. The mistakes kind of disappear in the overall look. So finally, I'm gonna make some of these little like green leaves. They're very, very easy. It's like easiest thing ever. So you just draw a thin line. Secret is that it has to be a thin line. Oops, kind of dark, never mind. And then I just dollop little dollops attached to that, and that's how you get like a, there we go. Okay, see, very free and easy. There we go. Superb. I'm starting to get a little bit too watery. Well, that's fine. You don't have to all be long ones. You can put a few short ones in these here. Okay. I'm liking how it looks overall, and actually it could be a nice plate on its own, like a plate with a bottom thing, maybe extending up the sides a bit. But I'm just gonna go ahead and do the same thing on the opposite side. Alright, now comes the final step. So I'm going to be grabbing my watercolor black here, and I'm just going to be painting a thin line around the rim. So this is the finished result, and I actually think that the new one here is slightly improved on the previous one. It was so fun. Alright, so this next design is based on the tutorial by Ellen Creamy Trent. It's a watercolor tutorial that's fantastic. I just did it on a paper plate instead of on paper, and it has branches, 3 branches of plum blossoms. I prefer it to cherry blossoms because my name is like Plum Blossom, and I painted a plum blossom set of chest of drawers before, so this kind of goes with it. Pink plum blossoms. This was a mistake, but in the overall look of it, it doesn't look too bad. So, but I'm gonna do another one, I think, without this weird centerpiece that I have no idea what's going on. Okay, I'm gonna draw a line like that. I'm gonna divide this thing into thirds. Let's see, thirds here. Okay, so the second piece is gonna go up here, and the third one is gonna go out here. So something like that. I'm gonna let the cherry blossoms kind of go towards the middle of the plate. We're just going to draw loose cherry blossoms all along, just blobs basically. So I have my blob of paint here, and I'm just working around it to kind of absorb a little bit of the pinkness, but not too much as well. I want it to be watery still. Little blobs of pink. That's all. It really is very simple. Sometimes bigger ones, sometimes smaller ones. And sometimes you can draw in the middle of a previous one just to give it a bit more dimension. And I might add off a branch here to the left. Okay. Now this one, let's have one that's branching out slightly here at left and right. Okay, I might add a little bit more detail into some of these. I am going to get some brown, some nice brown, and I'm just going to fill in the lines. Then, apparently what to do is you get some of this on your paintbrush, and then you just tap, tap, tap a little bit. Okay. And we have here the finished result, which I think is a slight improvement over the previous one without that weird blob in the middle. Ta-da!